Welcome, everyone, to These Sci-Fi Guys. I'm your host, Dave. With me again is Chad and John. Tonight, we're going to be doing a little different. You guys had us last week. We did a taste of A New Hope, Star Wars, back from 1977. We're going to do something a little bit more modern tonight. So I'm the gray-haired guy in the group. So these younger guys are like, hey, we got to get some younger movies in here. So. Uh, John picked up the movie tonight, and John, go ahead and tell us about it and how we're going to go with this.
Well, definitely did go a lot more modern in the sci-fi era, picking Gravity, and I'm just going to walk us through several questions that will kind of help us kind of digest that film a little bit. I know it's a little far in the other direction from what we did last week, um, but I guess we'll keep it pretty simple in the modern era, and we'll just walk through questions and just have a good time talking to each other again. So that being said, I guess I'll start with Dave this week. What did you enjoy most about the film?
Okay. Well, first of all, one of the things I enjoyed the most. Okay, first of all, I don't know if I said it. Did I tell you guys we're watching Gravity, the movie with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney? That's the movie that we're talking about right now. One of the things I liked about it is you could tell it was filmed in 3D. Um, that just like when the you can see when she lost the nut, and you can just see it start going towards the screen, and then she grabs it back and all that. Uh, that's one of the things I liked about it. Um, I really thought that the premise was sound, um, on hey, this is a possibility of what could happen in space. I mean, we have so many satellites that are in space, and if one of our, allies or even enemies decides, hey, that doesn't need to be up there anymore, so we need to shoot it down, and then having to deal with the fallout of what happens when an explosion happens in space. So I really liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. Okay, Chad, how about you?
Am I frozen? Uh oh. All right, that's much better. All right, I liked it. I liked this. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. You're good. Just keep going.
I liked it where it's more space. You saw was how quiet it was. I especially loved it how they put it in the perspective of us and Sandra Bullock put her in the camera was in her helmet, seeing how what she was experiencing. But you can really tell it was more 3D and CGI out there. So I kind of like
Yeah, I
that.
mean they definitely relied on the modern technology for it, which you kind of have to if you're in space. Hard to do a whole lot of
Right.
entire practical on that.
Yeah, and one of the things I didn't mention earlier is the the graphics were really cool. I mean, especially like whenever she was in the ship, or uh, George was on the with his little, I call it a jetpack. Um, Either one of those, where you could actually see the different shoots of puffs of air, of being able to stabilize it. Not just, okay, I got thrust in the back, I'm going forward. I mean, actually, uh, of the way they call it, station keeping, of just keeping it, directly. Because I mean, think about it. If any minuscule thing that you do in space is going to have extreme um, results.
That's for sure. And I think that bears on the lack of gravity in the situation, which makes the film title a little more ironic to me. And that being said, I think one of the things I enjoy the most is the fact that they're able to take just a largely small cast in such a vast, like, computer generated world and just do so much with it without having to do a whole lot of extra things. Like they were just able to take and encapsulate that whole world with just such a small cast. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of the entire film is they really allow the acting to carry a lot. And that being said, on the flip side, what are some of you guys' least favorite things? Chad, we'll let you kind of start off first this time.
Uh, Least favorite things. It's kind of hard to say. It was a good movie and very good at what it was. But I, with the Clooney character just going around. I know it was his last flight, but he was just goofing off to me. Then he finally gets back in there and then got serious when stuff was about to happen. But just more the goofing off, enjoying his last ride. Seems to me he should have been could have been a little bit more emphasis, helping out a little bit more. That's just me.
For sure. What about you, Dave?
All right. Well, where do I start? No, I won't go. I won't go too bad. Here, let me. One of the things. All right, that I thought some of the stuff was just flat out unrealistic. Um, the whole okay, you've got less than 1% oxygen, and you're gonna take a jetpack and then fly all the way halfway around the Earth to get to the ISS, um, International Space Station. You know, uh, just I don't know. There was a lot of the stuff that that just I kept asking questions. Okay, why is everything written in Russian? Why isn't there some kind of well, first of all, why is a doctor up in space, for a week working on electronics? That just doesn't make any sense to me. You would have an electrician or you would have an engineer doing that, maybe having the doctor walk them or talk them through it. But just to have a doctor up there in space pulling circuit cards in and out, that's just way below their level. Hold on.
I mean, I definitely think those are all very valid points. They definitely took some artistic liberty with some of the science. I mean, that's for sure. And on that end, I agree. And I think even more so, I think one of my least favorite parts is also technically a win for them, just in the sense that I hate that sense of dread of space and just the idea of thinking of being out there alone is just terrifying, which in a sense means they did their job correctly on the filmmaking side. Um, but that sense of dread just drives me insane every time I watch that film. I just can't handle it. But on the actual storyline side, I definitely agree with you, Dave. That scientific element, they took some stretches that they shouldn't have, and that happens in Hollywood all the time. But I think they handled quite a few of those a little better, considering they got so much right scientifically. They could have gone an extra mile just to take some of those bigger leaps. But then again, that's part of sci-fi, and I think a huge part of the sci-fi world is making real science nerds just a little angry at all the inaccuracy. So I think that's
Oh
just
yeah, I
part of the
mean,
world. What it is.
Exactly. I mean, and they're making a movie, and they're making their whole reason for making a movie is to get people to sit in the seats and to watch it. Some obviously will get on Twitter and complain about it. Others will say, "Oh, it's the greatest movie ever," while others will just be like, okay, whatever." I mean, you're always going to have, three different points. One of the things I didn't mention is, all right, some of this stuff is, why big question, why didn't they have some kind of emergency release on the chute? I think of the B-52. Whenever it lands, it actually lands and then it has a chute behind it. All right, and then usually it just comes to a stop and then it just kind of falls to the ground and then they have to go repack it. But I am assuming that there is some kind of explosive way to you hit the button and then, hey, it gets tangled with the tail and we need to get it off the aircraft because we have to retake back off again. I'm assuming they've got some way to jettison it. So that's why I was like, why didn't they have something like that on this? That was just one of my questions. When you ask why, that's one of mine.
Absolutely. I mean, because we all know NASA builds a lot of redundancy into their systems, and that's just a good engineering practice in general. So you're absolutely right. Now, in terms of this film, I know a lot of what we talked about again is the fact that they use a lot of computer generated elements. And in that sense, what things did you pick up on, look at that you wish maybe they had gone more practical? I mean, of course, we're working on Earth, it's different environments entirely, but what do you wish they had gone more practical with? And I guess, Dave, we'll start with you again on that one.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. All right, I'm a practical guy. I like seeing practical effects. I mean, there are some things that 3D can do. To me, on this particular movie, I want to first say, everything that was up in space for the most part was right on the money. I mean, I think it was uh, good visually. I enjoyed it. I didn't really have much of a complaints whenever it came to the space stuff, but especially when she splashed down, I thought that should have been done a lot more of that with realism, with practical effects. Use a model. All right, use a model. Here's a model spaceship. Do something like that when you're actually having it sink and all that instead of so much CGI. That's just kind of where I'd go with it.
Absolutely. I think that would have been a huge nod back to the golden age of sci-fi. Chad, what do you think?
Kind of agree with David. Just if we got it back on Earth, why didn't just having a model? Like have something where it's not just computer generated on Earth, or you get out and you hear things. But another thing is same practicality. Like you going from the ISS to a Chinese space station, doing the same thing, trying to make it to it. Calculate. Oh, use the how the landed cheese, the landed push the shooter over there to it. So just a little more aspects of make it more real than computer generated.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, one of
I
the
mean,
things I really
I'm right
thought
on the
of.
money with both of you guys in that sense. I definitely think I would like to have seen some form of effort. I don't think this would be entirely possible. I think I would have loved to have seen some of the space stuff practical, just to see how far they could push practical effects in the modern era. But then again, most companies, if they're putting money on it, they're going to put computer generated in. And so I would have definitely liked to have seen some of those been more practical. I think maybe even from what I could tell, at least some of the lighting, especially as well. I think they could have handled some of that in house and then added the elements around that to kind of match. And I think I would have liked to have seen a lot more of that, especially. I have a photography background, and I think it would have been awesome to see practical lighting taking place in a computer generated world. I think that would have been pretty neat. And along those lines, we have this huge story. There's only three actors and an actress in that, but still three people acting. Do you think this story works with any other actors? Do you think they could pull off the story quite as well as holding on to that kind of one singular idea and being abandoned in space?
Well, I'll just jump in here. All right. First of all, Sandra Bullock is one of my favorite actresses. All right, by far, absolutely love her. I love everything she's been in. She was in a movie called The Net back in the early '90s, which was a fantastic movie. You might want to watch it at some point.
It's
It's
a good
kind of
movie.
it's really about the internet. I mean, yes, you got to get by the floppy disks and all this stuff that I grew up on learning whenever it came to computer programming and stuff. And then, of course, now everything is online and what have you. I mean, she was great in Speed. The Blind Side. I mean, all kinds of stuff. Um, George Clooney did not do a good Batman. I'll just say that out there. All right, or let me phrase it. He did a very good, um, not Batman, but oh gosh, I can't even think of his name. Um,
Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne. Thank you. He did a good Bruce Wayne, but not a good Batman. Uh, but of course, I mean, Clooney is one of the best looking guys in the world. I mean, that's kind of why I think they got him on this thing. But I mean, the way I looked at it is, could I see Tom Cruise doing that role? No, I don't think he could have held it. Or Chris Hemsworth, Hugh Jackman, or even Dwayne the Rock Johnson.
No.
Some of these are big stars, that we have right now. I just can't see them filling that role. Now, on Sandra Bullock's part, there's one actress, or let me phrase that. I can't see Scarlett Johansson, Helen Hunt, Jennifer Lawrence. I really can't see any of them doing that. The only actress I could think of that possibly could pull it off, I thought, was Anna Hathaway. I think I think she could probably fill the role pretty well. Of course, they look a lot alike too. So,
Well, that is true. That is true. What about you, Chad, on the flip side?
On the flip side, I could. No, I don't think you can replace Sandra. You can replace George any because it was. You can replace George. But the thing is, I think George did a great job for it. Now, all others that they who mentioned, you can look at a little bit older, like Ed Harris. Am I thinking? No, not that yet. What's the
Ed
guy's
Harris
name?
was in the movie. He was the voice of Mission Control, if I remember
Ah,
right.
who was?
Yeah, I,
See, I didn't. You don't see him, so I can't just. But I think he would have done a great Clooney spot instead of.
yeah.
But you get. But other than that, I think if you replaced them, it wouldn't have been as good as it was. You,
Absolutely. I mean, I think they use their budget wisely in terms of their acting crew. I think the one difference I could make, I agree with you guys that I think Clooney definitely could have been the more replaceable one. In terms of modern replacements, I think the person I could see possibly doing it, the face may not work, but at least the acting would, is Pascal, good old Pedro, who's doing the Mando right now. Uh, I think he could have handled the space game and being in a suit, and I think he could have handled some of the humor too, if that's what they wrote into the character. So uh,
I'm not
he's the
sure. I
one
mean,
guy.
just Clooney's got such a just Clooney's got such a charm. I think that's why Pedro, I don't think, would be able to pull that off. You know, I mean, I like Pedro. I mean, I've watched Last of Us, I've watched Mandalorian. You know, but I don't know. There's something about Clooney. You know,
Yeah, but see, that's where the modern age of TikTok comes in. He's golden there.
I'm not on TikTok, so I wouldn't know that. So
That's fair. He's just the one I could see thrown into the role and do well with it. Um, but really, I think they did a good job at choosing actors who could handle themselves in a. Realistically, they were probably just in a studio, maybe hanging from some equipment, maybe some uniform on, but at the end of the day, they're probably just in front of nothing, and they're able to carry a story. And I think that when you really think about that side of it in the real world, I mean, I think they just did such a phenomenal job through all of that. And lastly, I think we did touch on this somewhat, Dave. But what other parts of the science do you think was wonky? Is there any other major things you noticed that you would have liked to have seen fixed on the science side?
okay, first of all, I know it's a movie in space, and you're trying to get the effects of being in space. However, I was an aircraft mechanic for 20 years in the Air Force. When you're working on an airplane, every piece of equipment has a place to go, and it's strapped down rigorously. When you're floating through the International Space Station, and I see a wrench floating here, and then a fire extinguisher here. I mean, stuff was just floating all over the place. It's like, and it was just getting in the way. And I'm like, really? Why isn't this stuff strapped down, or have Velcro on it and it's attached to the wall or something? That's just kind of the only, or that was the main thing that I just kind of, it just kind of bugged me, is like, why isn't that actually attached somewhere and out of the way? You know, and the fire
Yeah,
extinguisher
and
thing, the with her grabbing a fire extinguisher and being able to exactly push the button just right to get it. Well, first of all, she's going across at speeds galore, and then she has to get open the hatch, which of course has a decompression, which shoots her out. Now she's going this way and then going this way, and then that little fire extinguisher is going to stop her, and she's going to do with that the same thing that the jetpacks did for George Clooney on his. The little. I just don't see it. No,
now
no,
Dave,
it's not going to happen.
it's the Wally principle. You got to roll with it. There's a
no,
fire extinguisher in space. You just got to point it right. No, I
it's
agree
no
with you
rub right in
there.
his face.
No, no, no. I can't do that. I'm sorry. No.
Well, I mean,
You
Wally
know,
was a robot. I mean, it makes sense that he could point it the right way. I don't think Sandra could have done that correctly.
yeah. I mean, okay. Chad, how about you? What do you think?
I agree with that. Fire extinguisher is she's going too fast to kind of control her space. So there were things like that. I think that was wonky science, but it made a great movie.
Yeah, it made a great movie, but okay, let's go back to the how about opening the hatch on every place she went to, where it flung her. And I'm sorry, she would have been blacked out. I'm sorry
Yeah.
with how many times
That
she
one.
had no oxygen left. She's not breathing. She's breathing carbon dioxide, but yet she can open up the hatch and her whole body get flung around, but yet she still has a grip on it. I mean,
But
Yeah.
the thing
no,
is go
that's
back in
another
the.
wonky thing.
You go back in the space station. And she's putting out the fire. She gets thrusted back. Gets thrusted back.
Oh yeah, yeah, I saw that. I mean,
So
I get that, but just not to the um,
what I'm saying is like it could
degree
have
of
got.
being able to get to the exactly where you need to get at. I mean, I'm sorry. I just think she would have been wiped out. After all the one, you're having lack of oxygen. And then two, you're dealing with the fire, and then you get knocked out or whatever. And then you're trying to open a hatch. Your whole body's slammed. And then after all that, being able to stand up at the end and saying, "Well, I'm back on Earth. I'm good to go."
No, there's definitely some concussions there, some brain scans needed
Exactly.
to happen.
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
She could have some needed
She
some
wouldn't have
Perky
known what
malts.
buttons to push because she would have been seeing like three of them. Which one? I mean, I'm
Absolutely.
not. I'm as an American. I think English should be the universal language. And that's one of the things that they just kind of. There was a lot of stuff that. All right, for example, I went and looked at this up. Even back in 1969, when the Apollo missions, whenever they flew up, into space, they came back from the moon or whatever. When they landed on the water, they had a flotation system built into their craft that would, when they hit the water, it would float, and it could float for several days because they didn't know. You can't have the fleet right next to where you're going to land at because you may land on a boat. And so then it takes some time to get there. She lands in the water, opens the door, and then boom, she's sunk. you know I think they could have, what I would have done, if they maybe just have the computer where she has a button or something that pushes and it talks it to you in English, and just even have a throwaway line of, hey, flotation system is inoperative or something when it hits the ground, or when it hits the water. Just little stuff like that. I mean, they just throw away lines, but they would just make it so much better to understand what's going on and not have so many, oh well, that was just a wonky thing.
Yes, 100%. And I think they definitely did many elements justice, but there's definitely things that can always be fixed. So thank you guys for speaking of those, and thanks for watching one of my favorite modern films, at least. And so I'm just looking forward to hearing what you've picked out for us, Chad, because I know we've got another movie to come up and another movie to watch. So what do you got for us?
Well, we're going to keep it in the modern era, but we're
Really?
going into the. Yeah, I'm
I'm
a young
kidding. It's a
guy.
I like the modern era too. All right. Believe me, some of the ones I've actually thought about for the future, I'm like, I'm not going to just keep stuff from the 70s and 80s, even though those were some of the greatest years ever.
Well, see, that's
But
fair, and I'll
it's
throw it back there, so it's okay.
Yeah, me too.
we will.
But
I guarantee you, we will have a Terminator on here at some point. That will definitely be one of the movies I probably would choose. So, but we have time for
so,
that.
but we're
Go
going to
ahead, Chad.
go with Matthew McConaughey with Interstellar. So,
Good movie, Interstellar. Yes, I'm looking forward to that. I have not seen that in a while. I know it's weird, but
it
it's a good movie.
Well, I'm on
it's a
Chad's
very
side
good
of this.
movie.
See, I haven't seen it at all, so
You've
it'll be a
never
good
seen it,
watch for
okay?
me. Mm.
Well, that's what's nice about what we're doing here. Like Chad had never seen Gravity before until you brought it up, John, and now that he's bringing up Interstellar, uh, you haven't seen it yet. Chad, where'd you say you said it's on Paramount and it's on Amazon? So you should be
Amazon.
able to see it on one of those.
Yeah,
If not, let me know and we'll figure a way out so you can go ahead and see it.
yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, we're going to go ahead and close things out here. We appreciate you guys. As I got a little ticker going on the bottom, you can email us at TheseSciFiGuys@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at TheseSciFiGuys. And we just appreciate you guys all coming in here to see us and listen to us. And until next time, you guys have a good night.